What's up, guys? Legendary Talks, episode 93, I think. Like I said, we're getting geared up for my 100th episode, which is coming in about 2 weeks. Stretch just texted me he's ready. Good to hear. I am about to interview an amazing, cool guy, Stretch Armstrong, who we all know and love. I'm trying to pin it. He's just a cool guy, and he's lived a really interesting, amazing life. He said he's ready, so I guess I'll request him. Hi guys, how y'all feeling? Hey Erica, hey Claudine. Just requesting him right now. Hey Sid. How you guys doing? Requesting him right now. So obviously, thank you, Nell. What's up? Nice to talk to you today. Talk to my New York boo, Nelly. Hey, Meg. How are you? Meg and Ronnie. What's up, guys? Thank you for joining. Episode 93. Can you believe it? What's up, Megan Clark Murphy? I requested him. Let me see what's going on. How's everyone doing otherwise, though? Glad to see you all. Thank you all for joining. Tomorrow we have the amazing Misty Copeland, so please, everybody, watch us tomorrow. It's my 94th episode, and I'm very excited to chat with her. Let me call him and see what he is doing. Yeah, tomorrow I'm very excited. We have Misty Copeland. It's a very exciting episode. I haven't talked to her in a long time. We have lots to talk about. Oh, I see. We got it. The legendary Stretch Armstrong, DJ Stretch Armstrong. Hey.
Hey.
How you doing?
I'm good. As good as can be. Hi.
How you feeling?
I'm a little tired. I just drove 3 hours, but I'm happy to see you.
Good. Happy to see you as well. Thank you for driving and then doing this.
And when I just texted you, I was able to see a text I sent to you in May 28th, 2014 of you at Lotus.
Oh my gosh, wearing white again. I know that was Frank Roberts' birthday. I know exactly what night that was. Send me that picture again. That's amazing. Frank Roberts' birthday. I remember.
Yeah.
I always remember things by my outfits. That's how I remember things. It's so weird. Well, thank you for doing this. I appreciate it. I've been trying to get you to do this for a while now, and you've seen them. You know what it's about. We basically celebrate people that have been very important in culture. This is my 93rd episode.
Wow.
So I'm excited. Tomorrow, Misty Copeland, which I'm really excited about, and then we're doing a big 100th episode in about 2 weeks, though.
Amazing. Yeah, I see that you're bringing out the Belvedere vodka for Misty.
Yes, exactly. What are you drinking, by the way? What are you drinking?
You know what? Hold on. Let me get some better lighting here.
Okay.
I'm drinking. It's a vodka, but not Belvedere. No, I'm kidding. Well, this is water. Cheers.
Okay. Well, cheers to that. I'm drinking Belvedere and soda. Naturally, right? But yeah, so, like I said, we celebrate people of cultures. David Raven emailed me. He's so excited about you and then Misty back to back. And, Beverly Bond has been on here a lot. She hasn't been on the show yet, but Belinda, Lisa, you know the deals. So, I thought
I saw Dante on here, and I was humorously trolling a bit, and I'm sure I'm going to get some of that tonight.
I know. You said the funniest line. You said that I asked one question an hour ago, and he'd been going on. But, he had amazing stories, to be honest. He was one of my favorite guests because he had amazing stories that are basically these kind of amazing stories. And basically, it's about sharing stories that people don't know. We all know these stories amongst each other, but I have a lot of friends that are newer, and they have no idea what they're like. Oh my God, that's so amazing! So that's why I can't wait to talk to you.
Cool.
Okay, so you're from New York, right?
Yeah, born and raised in Manhattan.
Yes. And then, what's the first hip hop song that you kind of connected with, that you remember kind of really connecting with?
Rapper's Delight in I'm not sure if it was, it must have been 1980. Yeah, fifth grade.
Yeah. Okay, very definitive. Also, if let's say I didn't know you, describe yourself to me like as if I didn't know you. Like who are you? Who's Stretch Armstrong?
Wow, that's
Mm-hmm.
that's tough. I should have prepared, right?
No, but I like asking that question first because it breaks the ice. People just snap. They're no longer nervous after that one.
I would say I'm a misunderstood DJ. That's not very helpful, right?
No, that's good. Listen, I accept that answer.
All right, good.
So, Rapper's Delight, and then what was the first movie that like defined you, or you really kind of gravitated towards?
First movie?
Yeah.
My God, I mean, I didn't know this was going to be such a challenging.
Well, no, what it is I like finding out. I ask people these questions kind of in the beginning because I always say those are the things that really shape who the person becomes as like this creative adult. These kind of like we're 7 or 8. What we like is what we get as shaping us.
I think the first movie to really blow me away was probably Lawrence of Arabia, actually. That and the New York experience. You have to be a real New Yorker to know what the New York experience was. Do you know what it was?
No. Tell me about it.
It was a film, I think, about New York, about the history of New York, but with no. I didn't think it had any narration. It was very abstract in terms of the narrative. There really wasn't a narrative, but it was on 3 screens. So it was like, probably by today's standards, it just would have been like a very wide screen. But back in the 70s, this was like a big deal to have a movie that was projected like from your peripheral left to your peripheral right, and it was all about like these huge images of New York and the World Trade Center and everything that New York is famous for architecturally and artistically.
Well, that sounds awesome. And in general, I think movies that document New York City kind of in its trueness always are like kind of classic, stand the test of time. I think those kind of movies are always great.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, speaking of Dante, during the pandemic, he had a post asking people to talk about their favorite New York movies, and everything from like, well, I'm not gonna attempt to remember them, but I happened to be watching one at the same time, and I forget the name of it because I'm unprepared, but. There's so many incredible New York movies.
This is a good story.
About the mafia and crooked police and gangs and all the things that used to be fun about New York.
Well, New York is about to get that way again. First of all, you know that.
That's true.
But like even The Last Dragon, for instance, I love The Last Dragon because it's in the New York scenes in The Last Dragon are kind of I like that kind of classic New York that's documented in films from then basically. So, what's the first club you ever went to?
First club I ever went to, I think, was, God, I think it was Nell's. It was Nell's.
Amazing.
Yeah. Listen, I hit the ground running. I mean, the first club I went to is arguably the best club, in my opinion, in the history of the world. So. And
because I'm from Detroit, and the first club I went to was in Detroit, and I just remember it feeling so right. Did you kind of walk in? I walked in and kind of was like, yes. I went straight to the dance floor, which was on the stage, and just was there the rest of the night. But did you kind of have a moment you walked in like this is it for me, or?
Yeah. I mean, the night is relatively indelible in my memory, other than the fact that before attempting to get in, my friends and I got drunk on Old English 40s on the corner because. For those of us that were around back then, getting into Nell's was like, I mean, it was harder than robbing a bank. I mean, it was just like, it was a very small club, and it was internationally known, and so many people wanted to get in, and it was the door policy was incredibly restrictive, and you really had to either know somebody or just have a look that one of the door people liked. And I was 18 years old. I was with my friends Michael and John. They were Upper West Siders, and I'm not even sure how we knew about Nell's, but it may have been because we were friends with this guy, Philip Brown, who was like this really good looking, cool guy. He was a drummer and was just up on all the cool music. And he was a little bit older than us, but somehow we became friends with him. And I think he was kind of our conduit to knowing about what was going on downtown. Anyway, we decided that we were going to go to Nell's, and we didn't have a plan. We didn't know anybody. At the time, there was a great store for buying fashionable clothes called Charivari, and on the Upper West Side, and we would buy clothes there to fit the part. You know, it was like everyone was wearing black, you know, mock turtlenecks and, you know, Doc Martens and all that, which is funny because considering I was like so into hip hop at the time, but I also was like trying to, I was 19 years old. What did I know? But I was definitely dressing the part as someone who would go out to clubs. So there we were. We took the train downtown, got to like 14th and we were at 14th and 7th Avenue. We got 40s. We're just pounding them just to get it over with. And I can't speak for my friends, but I was genuinely nervous about approaching that rope. And that rope, I mean, when I say that rope, you can't even see the rope. You get to Nell's and there are like 200 people outside clamoring to get in. And it was like the stars just aligned. Jessica Rosenblum, who I didn't know, she was the door person at the time. We would, of course, become friends. But that night, she saw me and my two friends, pointed to us, had security, spread the crowd, and we walked right in like we owned the place. And I'm thinking, like, we just pulled some kind of caper because, like, I don't have any money. I'm not bringing girls. Like, I'm totally wet behind the ears. She let us in, and once you're in, they know you. And unless you're an asshole inside, like, they'll continue to let you in. That summer, I was in Nell's like 4 times a week. Frankie and Basil and Belinda, they were DJing, and it was, the other great thing about Nell's was that the dance floor was super intimate. And, I was like this, 19-year-old that I never went to clubs. Like, I wasn't confident enough to like dance. Of course, I never really became known for my dance moves. But the thing about Nell's is there were no lights on the dance floor, and the DJ booth. The only light you saw on the dance floor was the light from the bar to the front of the dance floor, and the lights coming out of the DJ booth. Other than that, it was pitch black. So people that maybe weren't so down for dancing, like, everyone was just getting loose in there. And of course, a lot of other shit was going on too because it was so dark. But it was just an incredible time. And to your question about what I felt, I mean, I walked in there and that was kind of the moment where I said, oh, this is what I'm going to do. I was already DJing, but like being in that atmosphere and, seeing the excitement and that kind of exchange between the DJ and the crowd, I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to be doing that.
No, I think that all of us, we had that same experience. We walk in the club, it clicks, you kind of, like, the angels start singing or something, Yeah. So, yeah, I was just wondering if you had that moment. And just for the record, I blame Jessica for what we have here today. For letting you into Nell's, I blame Jessica for all this. What was you said you were DJing already. What was your first gig?
Okay, so I went to Columbia University. That is, of course, WKCR's home, the radio station, or rather, Columbia is that's the station's home. We'll probably get into that in a bit. But before the radio became anything, a friend of mine named Tamer and we started throwing parties on campus at Columbia in the dorms. And I think now you go to Columbia and like there are a lot of parties happening everywhere. Like DJ culture is so widespread. But back then, I was the only DJ on campus, and the parties we threw were the only parties with DJs. There were other nights with bands and whatnot, but yeah. And our parties just had the flyest people, and the parties got so big that we moved. The last party we did near Columbia was on 125th Street under the West Side Highway. There's an old like dive bar there, and we packed it in. The crazy thing was the week before that party, Tamara and I got into a water fight in the Barnard dormitory because I was living at Barnard. Smart, right? And all girls. I was into living in the girls' dormitory, and we were like chasing each other around with water, and he cornered me in the bathroom, and I smacked this glass out of his hand. It broke, and it lacerated my finger, and it cut my nerve. I had to go to the hospital to get surgery, and the doctor, they were like, look, we can give you the surgery now, or if you can't do it now for whatever reason, we could do it, schedule it. I said, look, I got a DJ tonight, so just wrap me up and we'll have the surgery tomorrow. So that's what they did. I had a bandage the size of a cantaloupe melon over my left hand, and I just DJ'd with one hand, and the party was incredible, 125th Street. And then that party got so good that we moved it down to Big House, which was a club on Leonard and West Broadway. And that party got so good that we moved it to MK. And that turned into me doing a party every week at MK called Superfly. And that lasted. What year
was the MK around, do you think?
89.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you know. And then what was your first big gig, do you think? Like, what was your first really big gig?
First really big. It doesn't really feel like there was ever, it just felt gradual, you know?
Got it.
Yeah. I mean, once I started getting booked overseas, that's when it started to feel
like
real.
I'm going to Europe.
Although I had plenty of gigs overseas that were total trash, but nobody knows that. They just assume that it's glamour and glitz.
Like, I'm fine, Europe, I've made it. And during that kind of MK time, was there anyone that you kind of like either modeled yourself after or looked up to or kind of were influenced by? Like,
yeah, sure. I mean, there were kind of like two groups of DJs, almost like two categories that really meant a lot to me. The first category were like the downtown staples, guys like Frankie, you know, who was at Nell's, and then of course he did Soul Kitchen. Jules was DJing at MK, and you know, there weren't that many DJs back then, and you know, so the ones that you would see out a lot were hugely influential. Duke of Denmark, I would say. I was going to mention this other group, which were like the hip hop DJs. As I started to like, you know, I was into all the different types of club music, but hip hop, I think, just resonated. I'm not sure if hip hop resonated with me more, but when I had a chance to get on the radio, I decided to do a hip hop show because I just found the whole culture around hip hop and what was happening just to be really exciting. And I was such a fan of 80s hip hop radio. And by 1990, the radio terrain really wasn't as amazing as it was in the 80s. Yeah. So I felt like, this is a great opportunity to do something to kind of fill a void. So then there were like the hip hop guys, like, and it was really Clark Kent and Kid Capri were the guys that like, I would go out and I'd be like, wow, like, you know, I've seen a lot of great DJs, but like, this is some other shit. Like, this is like total crowd control. Duke of Denmark kind of fits in to both of those categories because he was like a superb hip hop DJ, but he was also doing just a lot of the downtown parties, and his knowledge of music was really vast, and he would do like, he'd play incredible like disco classics and deep house and yet, I mean, Duke may have been the most influential DJ, you know, in my life, like prior to me becoming a professional DJ. Yeah.
Well, that's what it's about. It's about, like you're saying, kind of like a vast variety of music. That's all the best DJs are, you know, Goldfinger's on here right now. He's, you know, you yourself included, you know, like playing disco, playing, you know, kind of hip hop mixed with disco, mixed with, you know, whatever, you know, house, like you said, that's a great, you know, during that time to, doing that, I think was a really, those are the best DJs usually.
Yeah, look, I mean, I think most DJs, you know, particularly DJs that have like a hip hop perspective, claim that their palette is really wide, but the reality is that a lot of them, you know, they're like, no, I play house music too, and you'll hear like Follow Me and
Yeah.
you know, Break for Love. And you hear like the same like 10 songs over and over. Whereas like a guy like Duke was like, he turned New York City on to like so many records that then, and this is something that I used to think about a lot, like how the dance floors at Nell's and MK and well, even further back to like Paradise Garage, how they influenced the crowd that was there, but they really influenced the world because, you know, clubs would always attract like a very, you know, kind of, you know, at least a segment of the crowd is going to be like this very sophisticated sliver of the population that then, you know, advocates for the scene like beyond the walls of that club, and the effect that had pre-social media was huge. So I mean, like a song like I Was Born This Way, Carl Bean, which is like the gay anthem. Of course, that's a song that would have been played regularly at Better Days and at Paradise Garage, but Duke was playing that at Trip for a hip hop crowd every Tuesday night at Mars. And that became a song that like was known by like every downtown kid, like whether they were aware of what the message was or not. I mean, that was amazing to see.
Yeah, that is really amazing. You're right. What were your go-to songs kind of for you when you were spinning out like MK and stuff? What were your kind of go-to songs around that time?
I mean, I don't remember.
All right, that's okay. No, that's fine. So what's your kind of favorite song that reminds you of that era, you know?
That era, probably like Soul to Soul, Back to Life, 45 King, the 900 number, Slick Rick, Mona Lisa, Jay Williams, Sweat.
Yeah.
There's a whole bunch of, you know, incredible dance hall from the late 80s, around 1990 as well. Yoon, what up?
David Raven says hello too. He's on here. Megan Ryan.
What up?
Okay, so let's talk about your radio show. So you started that radio show in 1990, right?
October 26th, 1990, which means that this October is the 30th anniversary.
Amazing.
Of the first show, yeah.
So the Stretch and Bobbito show, obviously, you know, you had, to my knowledge, like literally every single rapper that was around at that time on the show. Jay-Z, Biggie, DMX, Fugees, Nas, like Cameron, everybody was on that show. First of all, how did you guys come up with it? I always thought it was you and Bobbito being like, let's start a radio show, but how did it really come about?
Yeah, well, first of all, we made a movie about our radio show. For anyone that hasn't seen it, it's called Stretch and Bobbito Radio That Changed Lives. All the people, it was on Netflix for 3 years, it was on Showtime as well, but both terms expired, and now you've got to stream it. You got to pay a little money, which goes to a good cause.
Well, first of all, let me interject and say it's a great movie. It's, even if you don't know you guys at all, it's a very informative movie. You know, it's so just interesting. It's a really great movie, so you should pay to see it. Not just because you're friends with him.
I think it's a really funny movie as well. It's informative. It's funny. It's entertaining.
I love it.
It's a real snapshot into an era, and it's not just about us and the artists. It's also about the listeners. It's about New York City. It's about how culture was kind of.
Did you make that movie? Did you guys make that movie yourself, or how did the movie come about?
Yeah. Bobbito had already directed a film. One of our producers, Omar Acosta, who's like he's like a Swiss Army knife of movie production. Like the guy edits, animates, like writes, cinematography. He's incredible. He's a Boricua brother from Manhattan, and he approached Bob. He's like, "Yo, I saw your film on New York street basketball. I want you to do a film on the radio show." And Bob was like, "Nah, I don't want to do I don't want to do a movie. Like, it's just too taxing. I made one documentary. It took like years, and it was just, I'm good." And Omar persisted, and then when Bob found out that Omar was Puerto Rican and his mother is a professor at Columbia, and Omar used to listen to the show, Bob was like, "All right, we got to do this." And like within 5 days, we were interviewing like Fat Joe, Rosie Perez, and and other people, like we hit the ground running. So anyway, yeah, and we there was so much to tell in the film, and the part about how we got the show was like done like in 30 seconds, but I had gone up to the station to find out what the deal was, if like I could even get a show, and I was rebuffed like at the door. Like I didn't even get in the station, and they basically told me, no, you want to do a hip hop show, that doesn't happen here. What I didn't know at the time was that Pete Nice and Daddy Rich of Third Base fame and Clark Kent were doing a show about 2 years prior, and something got stolen from the station. And of course the hip hop show got blamed, even though it wasn't their doing. Yeah. And so I think there was a little bit of a residual politics, not right, but still there when I approached the station. Anyway, that fall, a friend of mine, Ed Case, rest in peace, he was the jazz manager, and he knew I was really into hip hop. So he comes up to me at the dorm. He's like, "Yo, Adrian, there's a hip hop show on KCR." I was like, "Whoa, that's my show now." Yeah. So I went to the station, and I met the station manager, and I pleaded my case, and I was convincing enough that they decided to give the show, the Thursday slot, to me 1 week, and then to this other crew another week, and we would alternate till they decided who would get the show. At the same time, Bob and I had just become friends. He was at Def Jam, and we formed a friendship really quickly that was based on a common love of music, on loving to go out, and from his point of view, he wanted to hang out with me because I had pretty girlfriends. So
still do.
And around the time, we were like just fantasizing about doing a radio show, but not at an actual radio station, but like recording something and somehow distributing it, which like syndication. It was a pipe dream, and it was only like a fantasy. But when I got the chance at doing the show alternating on Thursdays with these other guys, I asked Bob if he would do it with me. Now at the time, I was terrified of talking on the radio, because I was like, look, I'm good just DJing. Like I do not want to be the white guy in 1990. Remember 1990 was like, we were still in this, era of Afrocentric Black power in music,
Public Enemy,
Brand Nubian, Lakim Shabazz. I mean, even, Big Daddy Kane, Poor Righteous Teachers, Jungle Brothers. So I loved all that music, but I didn't feel like I could be the voice representing that in New York City. So I asked Bob if he would do it for me, and he was down with it. And then we got the shot, and we did it. The funny thing was, I didn't know this at the time, but the show before the hip hop show was called Reggae Rhythms, and the guy that was doing that show, Dylan Powell, he was an actual Jamaican. He referred to himself as a coconut, which is hilarious. And being like, one of the only black guys at the station, he was kind of appointed the head of the African American music department.
Naturally.
So they asked him. They asked him, all right, which show? Who's going to get the show?
Okay.
And we had a better show. I mean, through my connections at in the clubs, and through Bob's connections at Def Jam and the industry, and through my at the time I was a record store rat. I was in record stores 4 hours a day. I had records. Our show was just great. We had like Def Jeff and MC Search and Jungle Brothers and Two Kings and a Cypher, all in the first two shows. So when they asked Dylan who gets the show, he was like, and he was friends with the other guys, and they were all Black and Puerto Rican, and they were all part of like the student organization for students of color. And it was Dylan was in a little bit of dilemma. Like, do I give it to these guys because they're my friends and because they're Black and Puerto Rican, or do I give it to this white guy who I don't really know, and the Puerto Rican guy? I think the fact that Bob was Puerto Rican probably made the racial component a little bit easier to digest, but we got the show. You know, I think those guys were bitter at first, but then after a while, everybody saw what the show became, and like it really became kind of a pillar of the New York music scene and beyond. And pretty quickly, I mean, we were getting great coverage in the New York Times and the Village Voice as being, you know, kind of like this outlet for music that really wasn't being covered anywhere else.
Yeah. First of all, shout out to Dylan for making the right choice, right?
And Dylan and I are incredible friends to this day. He moved back to Jamaica, sadly. But at least when I go down to Kingston, I've got a really great friend I could see whenever I'm there.
So far, Jessica and Dylan are instrumental so far in the story.
It's true, and it kills me that we didn't put Dylan in the film, because we would have, but the story wasn't even, you know, in my head. I mean, I totally forgot about it, and then I talked to Dylan after the movie came out, and I was like, damn, that would have been so good. What up, Dante? What up, Chemist? How you guys doing? Dante, I see you're not roasting me, and I appreciate it.
He will. Give him time. He will.
Omar Doom, what up, brother?
So what are some of the highlights, I guess, from your radio show? Because, you know, the radio show was massive and, like you said, quickly really, like, you know, popular and accepted, and really a pinnacle of, like, where you were breaking people. New artists would come there, and then they would go on to get major record contract stuff after they did your show, though.
That's
so
right.
what kind of like
when you mentioned all the artists that were on the show, it's not just that our show was the first time these artists were on the radio. It was also before they were even signed.
Yeah.
Biggie was unsigned. DMX was unsigned. Nas came up in '91. This is 3+ years before Illmatic came out.
Wow.
Jay-Z, Rockefeller hadn't formed yet. Mobb Deep were coming up as Poetical Prophets before they were even Mobb Deep.
Yep.
Old Dirty Bastard was up at the station whiling out. Dante heard him and got on a train and got up and signed him. Like that's how ODB got signed. Wu-Tang came through and they just had the white label. It's a really funny story about how they ended up on our show, because it wasn't by invite. It was via Bum Rush.
Yeah. Always a funny story with Wu-Tang, but yes, please tell us.
But I think one of my favorite moments was, you know, I think there are a lot of people in this live that are of our generation, so we know how artists establish themselves. It wasn't about hype, and it wasn't about you know, social media and just people talking about stuff. It was like the music really spoke for itself. And the thing about Nas is that you gotta kind of know, if you didn't, and even if you were around back then, you might not even be aware of this, but for me, Nas was this like incredibly, I wouldn't even say exciting. I mean, like, I looked at him as like the second coming of Rakim based on one verse that he had on the main source Live at the Barbecue. So just on one verse, like, I revered him. I was like, holy, like, yo, this is it. This is the guy. And the second time he came to the station, you know, he was still that guy. His album hadn't come out yet. This was the second time he'd been on the show. And that day I had made a beat in my crib, and Nas comes up and we're talking about like what records he wants to rhyme off of, and without telling him that the beat I was about to play him was mine, I just asked him, I was like, yo, let me know if you like this. I put the headphones on. He was like, oh yeah, I can fuck with that. So he rhymed over this beat that I had made, and it was really like maybe no more than 3 or 4 times that someone rhymed over something that I had made. So to have someone that I thought that highly of rhyme over a beat that I just made and actually make like a really classic moment was, you know, super
What a great time! what a great time in general. You know, you're in your early 20s, you have this very successful show, you're kind of breaking all these artists, you're making beats now, and people that you think are these amazing artists are now rapping on your beats. Like, what a really exciting time for you. You know, early 20s, that's amazing. You know, so
yeah, that was like, yeah, it was cool. I mean, I always had like a real love-hate relationship with my own creativity, and that's why I never pursued making music as much as I did, because you know I was in this scene where I had access to like the best producers in the world, like, you know, whether it's Pete Rock or you know the Beat Miners or Buck Wild or like SD50s or Large Professor. Like, these are guys that were like giving me beat nuts. These guys are giving me like instrumentals, exclusive remixes, like letting me hear versions of songs before they come out, or just giving me beat tapes. And I'm making stuff, and like they're all encouraging me, but I'm like, I'm just gonna do this at home when I want. And eventually I just got really tired of that routine where I was like, you know, if I'm not gonna be like as good as these guys, like I'm just gonna stick to DJing. But that's not a good approach to creativity. And
yes, but it worked out.
If I was mentoring someone, I would smack that thought out of their head very, very quickly, because as we know, persistence eventually pays off, and you know, eventually you go from being a fan to being a pro or an expert. And you know, that happened with me. I'm on the radio in New York City. I'm a total neophyte. I've been DJing for maybe 3 years, and I'm on like the biggest stage in the world. So, but I figured it out. There were some rough spots, and
yeah, of course,
you know, that's fine. But eventually worked it out. Dante said I had joints. You never tried to get any of my joints on any records, though.
Who did you meet? I guess it could be even up till now. Who did you meet that kind of blew you away? You were like, I cannot believe, in like, you know, all of your work, you've been like blown away by with somebody. Maybe Nas again, and 20 years later, or somebody. You mean?
Oh, blown away. What? Sorry.
Blown away that you met like somebody that, you know, that maybe you met somebody that you had looked up to. Who kind of blew you away when you met them?
When I met them, blew me away. I mean,
could be Diana Ross, could be anybody. You mean?
Oh yeah, anybody. Sade.
Yeah. Good answer.
You want my Sade story?
Sure, of course. Why not?
It's pretty good. So, a lot of my friends, I'm friends with Stuart, who is you know, Sade's co-writer. You know, he's the guy you see playing sax and guitar from day one. Known Stuart for a long time, and of course his ex Michelle. You know, Jules, and you know, so many friends of mine from downtown were just, you know, buddies with Sade, and they would all hang out when Sade would come to town. I didn't really know this because I was always DJing, and also I may have been like a little bit younger, so I wasn't invited to the party. Also, there was a lot of extracurricular activity that I wasn't really a part of, that I think older friends of mine, they were like not trying to corrupt me, so I wasn't really privy to that. But for her Lovers Rock tour, Epic Records called me up and said Sade has requested that you DJ her after party, and I didn't know if that meant that Sade the woman or Sade the band had requested me, but I assumed it was the band. I assumed it was Stuart. I didn't know. And the party was at Lotus. So there were 2 concerts, and the first night went to the concert. It was incredible. Then I had to rush out of there and get to Lotus to DJ. Jules was upstairs in the main room, and I was downstairs where Sade would ultimately be with this very kind of, you know, exclusive crowd of her friends. And we all know downstairs at Lotus is the size of a closet. So I remember a bunch of people came in, Sade came in, and they closed the door. And I DJ'd from like 10:30 p.m. to like 5:30 in the morning, and Sade was dancing the whole fucking time. Her brother would come up to me once in a while and just kind of like grab me and tell me how happy his sister was.
Amazing.
Which was like, I was like, hey, I'm good.
Yeah.
The next day I went to the concert again, and Stuart had invited me to backstage after the show. So we went backstage, and we're all drinking wine and whatever. And Stuart comes up to me and he says, "Yo, we're all going to Open in a little while. Remember Open, that bar on 22nd on the West Side Highway?" So I'm thinking there's going to be a party there. I get there, there's like 15 people, and I'm talking to Michelle, Stuart's wife, and she's like, did you get a chance to talk to Sade? I was like, no. In fact, I was like, I've never spoken to Sade in my life. And I swear to God, at the time, I was imagining like, okay, if I can talk to Sade, like what am I gonna say? Like, you got to shoot your shot, right? Like you've got nothing to lose. Be like, yo, you want to go grab a drink sometime?
Yeah, like you're really beautiful, and I love your music.
No. Come on, I got more game than that. So I tell Michelle, I was like, yeah, I've never even spoken to Sade. She's like, what? How do you not know her? I was like, just never been in the same room with her. I don't know. So Henri says he left the door to watch her dance. Yo, no camera that night. So Michelle says, okay, you got to meet her. So Michelle she's holding my hand. She walks me over to Sade. Someone else is talking to Sade. And I'm just standing there like in line, feeling like a toddler. The person in front of me walks away, and Michelle brings me over and says, "I'd like you to meet Stretch, Sade." And I was like, hi. And of course, all the bravery I was imagining I had was just fucking out the window. I'm like, I don't know what to say. And she was so sweet and gracious. She sees me and she goes, "Oh my God, I just want to thank you for last night. I had the time of my life. You were incredible." And I was like, well, you were incredible. You danced the whole night and you made my night, and I just had an incredible time. And she's like, look, she said, and what I didn't say before this was that at 5:30 when I left, there were 2 people left dancing. It was Sade and a friend of hers.
Amazing.
She had people outside waiting for her, but she shut the party down. And when I met her, she said, listen, I had to be dignified. I had to leave, but I didn't want to. It was amazing. So that was that. And then this didn't turn out to be a party. People started leaving, and I figured out I'm going to go because Sade looked like she was going to leave. And she left she left Open, and I left, and I started walking down the street towards 10th Avenue, and I hear, as I'm walking away, Stretch, and I turn around, and it's Sade underneath a light from a street light, like in this like angelic lighting, and she's just waving.
First of all, that part didn't really happen.
Good night.
You dreamt that part. That part really didn't happen. The second part.
It fucking happened.
That's so funny.
It was crazy.
But what's so amazing is that, it's all pre-Instagram and all that stuff. So that memory is embedded in your head, just like that with the street light. And you're like, it's such a, the way you explained it, I understand it based on how you explain it. And that's how you remember. It's amazing. All that, the pre-Instagram life, that we're talking about.
That's I often don't have an answer for when people say, what's your favorite DJ moment? But that has to be.
Yes, no, that's a great DJ moment. That should be your favorite DJ moment.
Craig Shapiro, what up, my man?
Wait, so I'm trying to remember when. Okay, I think I know when I first. Did you spin at New Music Cafe?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's my first, I think, introduction to you. I moved to New York in '95, I think, and that was around '96, I think, wasn't it?
Was it Canal Room or New Music Cafe first?
It was that Canal Room, but it was called New Music Cafe at the time.
Yeah.
And I remember correctly, I think, did it Mark open for you, Mark Ronson?
He opened for me a bunch, but he also played there regularly. Yeah,
but I kind of remember, that's my first kind of, I think, introduction to you. What's your first memory of me? Do you have one? Oh
man, I don't. But
Because
but I do remember seeing you a lot before I met you.
Yeah.
You know, there are a bunch of people that that just make such an impression, and you expect to see them out because you see them a lot, and they stand out because of how they present themselves, and you come to all sorts of, you know, you might come to conclusions about who you think they are based on that, but sometimes you're right, sometimes you're wrong. And I think I only met you once, kind of my crew, and you became friends, and that would have been like Patty and Mary and all those girls. I think, well, maybe I'm wrong.
No, but I think it sounds about right. But I think I was aware of you from New Music Cafe, which was one of my favorite parties. When I first moved to New York, it was a great hip hop party, I think. And then I started doing the door, I would say kind of like maybe 2 years later, late 90s, at every kind of hip hop party. I was doing the door probably 7 nights a week. And so then I think you were either spinning or coming. So we just inevitably became friends with what it was.
Sure.
And I was thinking about that time, the Patties, the U's, the me's, we really were kind of like, you know, that annoying term, cool kids. We were the cool kids of downtown New York. I didn't know it at the time, but I was thinking about today. Like, you know, we really were the cool kids.
Hold on. You guys were the cool kids.
You were too.
Cool kids adjacent. Let me tell you something. My dad was living in my house recently, he broke up with his girlfriend and needed a place to stay. And I went onto his floor, and he had all these photographs from different eras, and I found this photograph of me and Patty walking through Chinatown. Yo, I looked so fucking bonkers, my man. Like, I'm wearing, like, you know when, like, you try to be too many things at the same time? Like, you gotta have a look and just go hard with that one thing. It's like I was hedging my bets. I was wearing Prada parachute boots, brown pants that didn't fit that well, a sweater, and I think some kind of jacket, and an oversized like goose down jacket. I mean, it was like I had so many looks going on. It was crazy.
I remember those North Face. I think they were vests. I feel like we all had those North Face vests. All of us. They were vests, right? Yo, jacket.
I look bonkers, and this is not just one. Patty was so, you know, Patty was and is like always so fashion forward. She was always ahead of the curve and always like just looked amazing. She still does, and she put up with this, which was nothing. And I can't remember if she was trying to like work her magic on me and I was just resistant, but like my glasses sucked, my haircut sucked, my pants sucked. I think the problem was I was spending so much time in hip hop, and like the hip hop thing was like these ultra baggy jeans that were the super. I couldn't do that. So and I couldn't go all the way like square. So like I was somewhere in the middle with like medium baggy pants. But my
hip hop nerdy or something like.
You know, I mean, I've said this to a lot of people. It's like, you know, I don't know how any woman like let me touch them back then. Like. It's crazy, but
and you always have the most gorgeous
your pants suck. Yo, Dante, a lot of your gear was fucking super questionable too. Chill.
Anyway. What are some of the kind of like standout parties or defining parties for you that you were doing kind of late 90s, I guess early 2000s? What are some major parties you remember doing? Defining parties.
Yeah. What's it called? Central Fly was amazing.
Oh, yeah. Yep, that's where I met DJ Cassidy.
Central Fly was a dope party. Upstairs was like, you know, they were going full on house music, and it was like Todd Terry and Armand and Junior Sanchez.
Yep.
I know I'm forgetting friends of mine. And downstairs was me and Mark Ronson alternating week to week, and that was just a really, really fucking great time where it was like the music was serious, the crowd was like energetic and for lack of a better word, sexy. I mean, there are a lot of parties. Someone mentioned earlier on Tribeca Grand, and Tribeca Grand Mondays were really special. There are multiple moments throughout the 90s where I was getting disenchanted with hip hop, and also like feeling so pigeonholed in hip hop that I was always trying to kind of push against that and try to do interesting things as a DJ. And in around 2000, maybe 2001, it's got to be 2001, 2002. I stopped doing the radio, and not being on the radio, I think it gave me kind of like this excuse to try to not really reinvent myself, but
try new things,
do something different. And I was talking to the people from 60 Thompson through Julie Park, another cool kid who I just bumped into like a week ago in Williamsburg. Julie said, "Hey, you want to do a night here?" And 60 Thompson was like, they had a super small lounge and bar, and I was like, "Oh yeah, cool." And I mean, that's if that doesn't tell you how willing I was to like do something different. I was willing to DJ in a teeny place, like just the bar, while already being like a internationally renowned DJ. I was like, "Oh yeah. I'll do that for $500 and drinks, and my friends could hang out, just so I can play music I love." And not feel any pressure to live up to expectations. And did that party, I think once or twice there. It was rammed, and I was playing like, Fleetwood Mac and Sade and like Toto and Talking Heads and
Hall & Oates
and Phil Collins. Yacht rock, but just a lot of like, really, I was calling it, if I had to describe it, I was like, music you might listen to at home, or music you may have grown up on. Like really familiar, and at the time that was really different. Like you wouldn't hear those music. I could speak. Hold on, you wouldn't hear that music in clubs. And within like 2 or 3 weeks, the party was getting too big, and Julie brought Patty in and Octavia, and we decided to move it to Tribeca Grand. And after a while, like we were doing like 1,500 people on a Monday night.
You're right.
At Tribeca Grand without a real sound system. I mean, it was like we didn't know from week to week. I didn't know like what was going to be there equipment-wise, speaker-wise. I mean, there were nights where I just had like one little monitor, which I would just turn around and blast until like the thing melted down. And I was playing like everything. I was playing 80s music, go-go. I was playing heavy metal. I mean, it was like, and everyone was like just singing along, and it was nuts. And like that was a party that would get regularly mentioned in like Page Six, and DJ. That was actually a party where a lot of working downtown DJs and DJs from California, when they were in town, they would come there and be like, "Oh shit, yo, you could play these songs," and and slowly but surely you'd hear songs that you typically would not hear in like a hip hop format being played.
We know that party was definitely, I went to it many times. Megan Ronnie did the door there, and she's on right now. That party was ahead of its time in a lot of ways musically, but in general, it was kind of like, it was a Monday night. It was this crazy, insane moment in time, New York City party I remember, I forgot it was at 60 Thompson until you said it. It went from like this little 200-person party to a 2,000-person party that was insane. You couldn't get in and things. And I mean, I guess maybe it was the music. What made it so special? What do you think?
I mean, I think just one of those magic things where
New York City things, like moment in time,
the right people. It stood out in contrast to everything else that was happening
you're right. It was new and it was different.
And it was one of the first parties that took place in a hotel where like it didn't matter if the door was killing it. It was like the hotel's gonna do well whether we're here or not. So it was just icing, and the party really, it wasn't even expensive for them to throw. I mean, I think we made good money, but like they were killing it. That bar was raking it in. And Dante, no, I was not using CDJs, but I did have CDJs to play some songs that didn't exist on Wax. But no, chill.
And then what was kind of next for you after that? What was your next kind of thing after kind of like spinning in the, I guess, early 2000s? What was the next big thing for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think through the 2000s, I just sort of rode I was kind of like just riding the vapors of my reputation from the 90s. But being flown around the world to DJ, showing up and then playing music that people weren't expecting me to play, kind of eventually took its toll, and I started not getting booked as much.
They're like, we want 90s Stretch, not 2000s Stretch.
Hey.
But wait, hold on. This is going to hang up in 2 minutes, so I'm going to end it right now. We're just going to start again, okay?
Amazing.
I want to finish a couple other things. So guys, we're going to end it right now and just log back on right now, okay?
Yeah.
See you in a second. See y'all in a second.